So I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. I've got the shocks on. I think I'm going to need to re-weld them, so I'll have to get the chassis rolling and pull it up to the garage where I have enough amperage to run my stick welder instead of that wire feed welder. Not satisfied with the welds on that. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the brake line on, and the main reason I'm going to do it now is because I have more room to get my body in there to put it on before I put the rest of the suspension on. So I bought a stainless steel brake line set, pre-bent, and got to try to figure out how it goes, because other than them maybe putting tags on which position in the car they go to, they don't give you any clues on how to do it. And I guess that's okay, because normally you'd be taking it off and put it right back on. But because I have had this laid up for several months, I kind of have to figure out which way it's supposed to go on. More concerned about whether I got the right side or left side here. They're pre-bent, but they're also kind of roughly bent. I don't know that these are symmetrical, so yeah, it's got to go to the way I had it originally. I don't have the two pieces bolted into the, actually they go in with clamps, into the frame, because I think what I'm going to do is get these threads started and then work the line into position. That light is blinding me. But it's easier to start these things they don't even want to start real easy when I have it off. So you gotta be careful not to cross thread them. If you cross thread them, you're done. Probably going to need new lines and new blocks. So I'm going to pull the blocks out and get out from under the lift where I can see what I'm doing well. Get them started correctly. So that's just barely started on there. Have to be very careful with that. I'm going to see if the other side starts any easier. little bit, but not much. More confident of that one threading correctly than I am the passenger side, but I'm going to work with these a little bit until I get them to where I'm comfortable that I have them threaded properly. I may have to run a little bit of a tap down there just to make sure that the threads are clean. They don't want to thread easily. So what I found is that standard caps are not the same thread as these. So what I've come up with, I have a plug that I used when I was working on brake calipers, and what I do is quickly take off the connection from the brake caliper at the rubber hose. I put a fitting on it and this plug inside that fitting so that the fluid doesn't run out. So what I'm doing is just gently going to run this down into those threads so that if I screw something up, I'll be screwing up a relatively cheap plug and the connector block. I won't be screwing up the expensive lines, stainless lines. So I'm going to do this very slowly and very carefully. Get all the crud out of it because I don't want any crud inside my brake lines. So that looks better already, but I'm going to work at this a little bit more to make sure that it's going to thread properly so I don't, like I said, last thing I want to do is screw up my brand new stainless steel brake lines, because that set is expensive. The plug and the block here, by comparison, are really cheap. So this is a 3/8 inch flare nut wrench. That I've got on here. I'll just run this in and out a couple times, checking the threads to make sure I'm not screwing them up, because that block has to fit tight, or the connection into the block has to fit tight, or it's going to leak. So probably should have just bought new blocks, and didn't think of it at the time. But I'm going to do this until I'm satisfied that I can tighten it. Looks like it's pretty close now. So those are the two junction boxes for the rear brakes that feed the flex lines that go towards the calipers. And after trying to get those threads cleaned up, I decided that I'm probably better off just acquiring new junction boxes. There's no sense in me screwing up a brand new set of stainless brake lines for a few dollars worth of investment in new blocks. So I got my new brake distribution blocks, and I'm going to See, these thread much easier than the ones that I'm replacing. I'm going to tighten this up and I'm going to feed this. This is the line that goes to the front of the car. And I'm going to just try to feed it near where it needs to be. And then take my line that goes across the back side and get it started as well. This is always tricky. Make sure I'm actually videoing it. Because of the bends in it, it's tough to get out far enough to where you can get the fitting started here. It's easier to do it that way. Than to try to put it in, because then you gotta fight with the line. And now I wish I hadn't put this bracket on, because it's kind of in my way. But if I can get this started, if I can get the thread started, and then wiggle it in while the thread started but the line is actually still loose, then put the clip on it, then get a wrench on it and tighten them. It's a little bit easier to do that way. So that's kind of on. And what I'll do before I go any further is I will start the passenger side block on as well. And then I will be able to manipulate the thing into place. I guess I should back out a little bit. Oops, wrong way. This can be a real hassle if you got the body on the car, because not having the body on gives you a lot more room to work. Okay, I'll put the passenger side block on. This goes in here, and then the other hole is for the brake, the flexible brake hose for that goes to the connection on there's a little metal tube that comes from the caliper and goes along the trailing arm, so that it just connects to that flexible rubber hose. So now I can line this back through, and hopefully I can get it lined up.
Part of me is wondering whether it would have been easier to just put this on and then put the hoses on, but I don't think it would have been. Okay, so that's through there, and now I need to get a clip on it. I need to pound that on. These are not the easiest things to work with. There, it needs to be tapped a little bit further on, but I need a dead blow hammer to do that. I'll just zoom in on it if I can. And now the rubber hose that goes to the connection on the trailing arm will screw into that. So after all that, guess what I did? Now remember, I always say I show you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I kind of did a bad thing. I had the line that goes to the across the back here in backwards. So I had to take it out. I am gonna, since I have the line out of the way, I'm gonna tighten that fitting there. But before I tighten that all the way, I am going to go up here to the front and get it started on that end. There's a tag on the brake line to identify where it goes on the car. Unfortunately, they put it between the nut and the flare, so it's in your way. You can't get the nut up on to the flare to tighten it on. And they make this out of some kind of indestructible stuff. It doesn't want to come off. Note to self, on the other pieces, take it off before you have it halfway on the car because you can reach it better. If I'd have put it on the other side of the flare nut, it wouldn't have even had to come off. Can't get it with these rubber gloves. These rubber gloves are a good idea. They kind of help keep your hands clean, but there's many instances where you can't work with them. This would have been much easier to do if I didn't have it up over my head. I don't know what that's made out of, but it's tough to cut. I don't have a fresh blade in my knife, but that's beside the point. Now it looks like it's about an inch too long. I'm going to have to somehow get some slack in there. I have this spring on here so you can't really get a grip on it. These are always tough. They're not really that flexible. Unless you get them lined up perfectly, the nut doesn't want to, or the fitting doesn't want to go in. And you don't want to put a wrench on it until you're sure that it's in there right, because this is brass and that would be easy to strip. In a minute, I'm going to take that off, get it started, and then put it back on. And I'm not going to do it in a minute, I'm going to do it right now. So those are 1/2-inch heads on the bolts. That was easy that way. Now I just gotta find me a way to get in. I'm not going to put those all the way back in just yet because I may need to wiggle that around in order to get the front lines started. So now that I have them, that line started, just a matter of bending it into position where I can put some brake line clips on. There's 3 that go along that side rail. And then there's one goes right here. Found a hole before. There it is. There's the hole, right? There's the hole right there. Clips the line there. Gets clipped there. Right in front of the cross member for the transmission. And one further down the line. Right here. So now that that's on, I'm going to go back to the line that goes across the cross member to service the passenger side caliper. Okay, so now that I've got that one screwed in, I'm going to have to get that rear brake line in. And I'm going to leave the other end loose and try to tighten or get this one started. If you can get the tubes straight, they'll go right in. The problem is getting the tubes straight. Okay, that appears to be straight. Started. Now I'm going to go back over to the other side and try to do what I set out to do originally, which is put the block on to the hose. While I can move it around. And then work it in through the hole in the frame. There's a tab there that has a hole in it. It's not actually in the frame. So that's on, and somewhere around here I should have another brake line clip. Oh, I guess you didn't see me put it in there. I basically went back there and went in easier the first time, maybe because I didn't have stuff in my hands. And now I can't find the clip again. There it is. Okay, it's most of the way on. Just give it a little love tap. And that won't go anywhere. Now, I will have to get some brake clamps on here too. There's a couple holes here, right there. One there. There. And there's one somewhere right close to the bottom of this clip with the light reflecting off of it. I can't actually see it. Oh, no wonder it's behind the support for the differential. Now that clamp I do have, so I'm going to go ahead and put that one up. I don't know, maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should wait till I have the others, because I might need to get them all put on loosely so that I can move the line. I don't want to clamp this down yet, but I will be tightening these bolts on those two blocks. If I can find my wrench. The wrench I dropped it. These are some of the hardest ones to work with because you've got hard lines coming in from two directions, at least on this passenger or driver's side one. So it does take some patience to get those on there. I can tighten these up pretty tight because there is room to flex the line. So I will tighten that one up the rest of the way, and now there it is. Now we'll tighten this one. Call that a wrap on the, well, pretty much a wrap. I have to still put the brake line clamps on to hang them. But pretty much a wrap on that crossover line. Pretty much a wrap on the front to rear line. And I can proceed to the front lines. I went to tighten the nuts on this line. I remembered I didn't tell you what size wrenches I used. The one that goes from the front to the back to the distribution block there was 7/16. The one that goes across the back to supply the passenger side caliper is 3/8 on both ends of that. The one up here on the distribution block here is 9/16. And I suspect the ones on the front are going to be 3/8, just like the back. They're pretty small lines. So, make a liar out of me. The fittings going to the front are 7/16. I've got the one for the driver's side started. I'd have to get a step ladder. I don't want to raise and lower the lift too much with that massive leak I have in the when I turn it on. Don't want to run it out of fluid and then I won't be able to move it. So now to try to get the line to the driver's side. I'm sorry, passenger side. A little bit of a challenge to get it worked around to where it needs to be. Got to go along the frame, so it's got to go under this steering gear that is probably not in your frame. And then I've got to make it run across the front end in the proper place. kind of where it has to go. Let's see if I can. See if I can get it started now. Take this completely off again so that I can wiggle it around more to get that started. And then I'll only have 2 more lines that I can't put in yet because they come from the master cylinder. I'll put those on probably after the body is dropped on. You don't ever want to force these things if they're not threading easily, because stripping them's a bad thing. But we've got these all started. Now it's just a matter of getting the screws back in and getting myself some clips so that I can anchor the brake lines in place. Of juice with my battery, flashing all kinds of lights at me. I guess I should shut the video off while I play with that. I haven't used that much. Shouldn't be out. And now it's showing me 4 lights that just must not have been inserted into the tool very well. Okay. I think that's pretty much all I can do on that today. Now that I've got this bolted down, I can make sure these are good and tight. Hopefully those are tight enough and they won't leak. Oops, wrong way. Okay. That's about all I can do on the brake lines today till I get some clamps and I get my calipers cured and everything so that they're ready to put onto the wheels. So I'm going to start to put the clips on for the brake lines. I got these types of clips at Summit Racing. Apparently you can get them, you know, Lowe's, Home Depot. They're really electrical clips, but that's what they sell at Summit. This part of the tubing here has a coil spring around it, and I guess that's to protect the brake lines from any impact damage, and that's a good thing. However, I'm kind of up in the air about how I feel about those, because they also provide a place for dirt and debris and water to stay and promote rust. These are stainless steel lines, so it shouldn't be a problem, especially with the use this car is going to get. Mostly dry days, and only out in the wet if I happen to get caught in an unexpected rain shower. But the pre-bent lines are pre-bent generally in the shape they need to be. And I don't know if you could actually thread them in, especially with the body and engine and that on the car, if they bent them exactly. So maybe that's a compromise so that it's easier to thread them in. But it is what it is. So the clips that I got for the parts that are covered with that spring are 3/8 inch. I got 1/4 inch for the places where it's out of the, like it's behind the cross member in the back, so it's not really subject to as much damage. But I'm gonna have to, after I get these on the clip, I'm gonna have to try to bend these. Let's see, get the thing in front of the camera. Gonna have to try to bend these things. Well, I know why I'm having trouble. It's upside down because I've got the screen rotated toward the front of the camera. But I'm going to have to try to, after I get them the brake line through the hole to bend these tabs, because when you try to insert the self-tapping bolt, it'll go through the first one, but it doesn't exactly line up with the second one without compressing it. So I'm going to have to try to bend them. If that doesn't work, these bolts do have a built-in ridge on them that will stop the socket from going down on it. So I'll just put pressure on the socket and hopefully be able to get them in that way. So first thing I'm going to try to do is bend this one that I've already got on the brake line, and that seemed to work pretty well. Then take my ratchet, I'll get that later, I got plenty of these. Take my ratchet, insert a screw through those holes, try to line it up, and I'm having trouble with the amount of, I'm going to see if I can get it to start through those, the clip, and then line it up with the hole. Okay, I've got enough through the hole, the clip, to line it up and get it started into the hole. Then I'll just put pressure on it with the ratchet and run it in. Okay, got the ratchet on the nut head, bolt head. I'm having trouble seeing. I think that's lined up. Okay, it's started. So that's going to be the process, and I'm going to go around all the brake lines. Make sure this guy is where it will reach the place it's got to be to connect to the brake hose before I tighten it down completely. Maybe I shouldn't tighten it down completely. Maybe I ought to get the brake hose on first, because a little play in that is going to be a good thing when I try to put the brake hose on. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Every place where it's not connected to the brake hose or the next piece, I will just loosely put it on, and then after I come back, after I've got the brake hose on and it all attached, then I'll tighten them down for good. So I'm going to do that on the whole car, and I will just come back and show you what I've done. Since it's going to be the same thing as that, I'll just show you what I've done when I'm finished. What I found out real quickly on like the second one is that when you're squeezing these tabs together, let me just zoom out a little bit. You're trying to squeeze these together. Instead of trying to squeeze the tabs together here, you get a much better compression on them if you put your pliers there and squeeze down on that. Don't want to do it on this one because I'm going to have to use it, and I don't want to have to bend it back out. But that's a little bit of a tip. Just if you can reach it this way to squeeze here, the compression you get is much better than if you just use the tabs. So I'm running into a little bit of a problem with one of these tabs that's attaching the brake line. It won't fit under the Borgeson steering box without moving the box out of the way. So what I am going to do is try to take out two of the bolts on the top here that hold the Borgeson unit in, and loosen, I guess, the third one so that I can swivel it out of the way. Loosen the bottom one first. Oops, don't want to take that one all the way off. Okay, that's fine. The other top one I'm going to take off. Looks like a washer dropped off, so I'm going to have to tap that one out. That one came out easy. Second one's a little bit stuck. I'm going to get the dead blow hammer and knock that out. So I retrieved the washer I dropped. The magnet on a stick is a really handy tool to have. Now, is that going to be enough? I believe it is. But I'm going to need a long extension to fit down there. Put my wrench on, tighten. That one I could tighten all the way because it's already connected. At the junction box there. So now I'll just have to put this back into place. Get this square on the carriage bolt lined up. Doesn't want to go in by hand. There, it's all the way in. Now it's just a matter of putting those bolts back on. They are locking nuts, so seems to me just tightening them good and tight is all you need to do. So So here's the brake lines starting with the front driver's side, and this is why I left them a little bit loose. I'm going to need a little bit of wiggle room to pull these out, to thread them into the hose that will come up through this hole. So the clips are on, but they're on just enough that I do have some wiggle room in them. So there's one just below the connection for the upper control arm. There's 3 clips across the front, right above the connection for the lower control arm. One in the middle by the left side, driver's side, lower control arm. Again, one right underneath the upper control arm. Those are all attached but not completely tightened. Now here we have the line coming over from the front passenger side, and it is so close to the distribution box that I did tighten that one right here all the way down. But the one for the driver's side, again, I need some wiggle room to tighten it to the hose. Looks like it might even need to be bent that way to make it fit. Now looking at the driver's side from the passenger side, we got the distribution block there. One clamp there, one right near the cross member for the transmission, one towards the back, one where it turns up and goes to the junction box for that side. I don't know if I can get it in from here because I'm standing across the car. No, probably can't see the junction box. But anyways, it's in there. And that is all completely tightened. Maybe you can't see the junction box. That's all completely tightened because nothing remains to be tightened. So here's the junction box at the back, driver's side. So this is where the rubber hose to the driver's side rear brake goes. This comes from the front of the car, from the master cylinder and through the distribution box to feed it. This is the line that goes over to the passenger side rear brake. It's connected with a clip there, and underneath there's an original clip that's a little bit different because it just clips it right to the cross member underneath the where the snubber bushing attaches. And then from there, I don't know if I could see it from over here, but it basically just goes up along the frame, another connector right there. And that one looks like I didn't tighten it all the way. These can all be tightened because once they go into that junction box, I have wiggle room from the flexible hose to connect those. So that's going to be it till I put the calipers on.